Before he was a symbol, before the legend of Superman was written, there was only Kal-El, a child born under a red sun. On Krypton, his body was ordinary. His cells absorbed the dim, ancient light of Ra, enough to live, but never to fly. Then came the journey. A tiny spacecraft, a baby sent across the stars. When that ship tore through Earth's atmosphere and landed in the Kansas fields, something began. Something no Kryptonian had ever experienced before. The moment Kal-El's skin touched Earth's sunlight, it was as if the universe flipped a switch. The light of our young, yellow sun flooded his body, its radiation striking his cells, rewriting his biology. Kryptonians were living solar batteries, and Kal-El was plugged into a power source far stronger than anything he'd ever known. At first, the changes were small. As a boy, Clark Kent felt stronger than others. Faster. He could run home before his mother even finished calling his name. Then came the day he lifted a tractor, and the day he realized bullets bounced harmlessly from his skin. Scientists might call it photonucleic effect. But for Clark, it was something more, something spiritual. The sun didn't just give him power, it gave him purpose. Every ray of light was a reminder that he had been given this gift for a reason. But hidden inside that gift was a terrible truth. One that no one, not even Superman, wanted to think about. If the sun was the source of all his strength, then without it, he would be powerless, vulnerable, mortal. And one day, that nightmare became real. It began far from Earth. On a mission deep in the void, chasing a distress signal from a lost colony, Superman found himself in a starless sector, an ocean of black. Here, light was scarce, the stars faint, their energy weak. At first, he barely noticed the difference. But hours became days, and days became weeks. He felt it in his bones first. The endless stamina he'd always known began to fade. Lifting a mountain felt like lifting a building. Lifting a building felt like lifting a car. His hearing, once able to catch a whisper from across the planet, dulled until even the hum of a nearby engine seemed distant. For the first time since his youth, Clark Kent felt tired. Somewhere in the back of his mind, a thought echoed like a whisper he couldn't silence. Without the sun, I'm just like them. But the mission wasn't over, and the dark had only begun to close in. Every second without sunlight was a countdown Superman could feel in his veins. His cells were no longer recharging, they were draining. Each breath felt heavier, each heartbeat slower. He kept flying, not because it was easy, but because stopping meant failure. The distress signal still pulsed faintly in the darkness, a rhythmic call for help. But the black of space was merciless. There were no dawns here, no yellow warmth to refill his strength. He was a battery on its last charge. Memories began to haunt him. Martha Kent telling him to be careful when he was a boy. Jonathan warning him that one day, there might be a fight he couldn't win. Lois smiling, trusting him to come home. Always, Superman gritted his teeth. He would not let this be the day he broke that promise. Then movement ahead. A vast, dead planet emerged from the shadows, its surface cracked and barren. The distress signal was coming from below. He landed hard, too hard. His legs almost gave way. Even the act of walking felt foreign, heavy. Gravity here wasn't stronger. He was weaker. Inside the ruins, he found them. A handful of survivors huddled in the cold, their eyes wide at the sight of him. But Superman saw something else, fear. Not fear of him, fear for him. He realized they could see it. The slight tremble in his hands. The way he leaned on the wall for support. The man of steel was fading. The survivors spoke of a nearby system with a yellow star, just days away by ship. Days. For Superman in this state, it might as well have been years. But there was no choice. They had to leave. And if his strength failed completely before they arrived, someone else would have to carry him. For the first time in his life, Superman felt like a passenger in his own story. And the clock was still ticking. The ship's engines hummed softly, a sound that usually meant safety. But for Superman it was a reminder. Every passing second took him closer to the edge. He sat quietly in the corner of the cramped cabin. Not because he wanted to, but because standing was starting to feel like lifting mountains. His cape, once billowing with purpose, now lay still across his shoulders. The survivors kept glancing at him, not as a symbol, not as a savior, but as a man who might not make it. They offered him food, water, and for the first time he realized how human those gestures felt. Because right now he was closer to human than Kryptonian. In the dark beyond the windows, a faint glimmer appeared. It wasn't the yellow sun, just another cold star. Superman closed his eyes. His thoughts wandered to the fortress of solitude, to the warmth of Kansas summers, to Lois's voice saying his name. His breathing slowed, not because he wanted it to, but because his body was conserving what little energy it had left. And then, a flicker on the horizon. A golden spark, barely visible but growing. The ship's captain shouted, "We're entering the system." Superman didn't answer, but deep inside, his cells felt it. The first whisper of sunlight, calling to him like an old friend. It was still far, and he wasn't sure he'd last long enough to reach it. But the light was there. And as long as there was light, there was hope. The golden glow grew stronger, piercing the darkness like a promise. Every breath Superman took was a battle, but the light, it called to him. The ship's hull rattled as they entered the system. Planets drifted past, some shrouded in clouds, others barren and lifeless. But ahead, a small yellow star, shining like the heart of the universe itself. Superman gripped the side of the cabin. His fingers felt heavy, but his eyes locked onto that light. It wasn't just energy. It was home. The captain turned. "We're slingshotting around the nearest planet. That's as close as we can get." Superman nodded weakly. "No, closer." He staggered to the airlock. Every muscle screamed in protest. Every heartbeat felt slower than the last. The hatch opened, and the void swallowed him whole. At first, he drifted, weightless, silent. But then, the sun's warmth began to touch his skin. It was faint, but it was there. The cells within him stirred. Not instantly, but slowly, like embers reigniting after a long, cold night. His eyes opened, glowing faintly. The cape lifted in the solar wind. And in that moment, Clark Kent was gone. Superman had returned. The survivors watched from the viewport as he soared ahead, leaving a crimson and blue streak against the endless black. He was weak. He was tired. But he was flying again. And with the sun at his back, he would always rise.